We are a family, a big family, a loving family, in this Christian family.
So welcome everyone, and here we are on day 2 of our Marriage and Family Week and our live panel discussion. We're reflecting on media and the family. It is my pleasure to welcome all those who are joining us this evening in a special way, Sister Angela Ann Zukowski, all the way from Dayton, Ohio. So welcome, sister, and thank you for being here. We also welcome Jeremy, Alicia, and Joshua Francis, this wonderful family that's joining us. And we also have Leif and Arlene Johnson and Thane Guerra joining us this evening in our discussion. Let me just introduce Sister Angela Ann quickly. And Sister Angela Ann, no stranger to our shores in any way. Sister Angela Ann is the director of the Institute for Pastoral Initiatives and professor in the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Dayton, Ohio. She is a Marianist Education Associate and has been teaching at UD for over 34 years, many, many years. She's a member of the Mission Helpers of the Sacred Heart, and she is co-director of the Caribbean School for Catholic Communications. When we talk media in the Caribbean, we think of Sister Angela Ann, because for me, in 2004, I met Sister Angela Ann at Communication School teaching, guess what? Media literacy. So no stranger to what we're doing. She was the past president of UNDA World, and UNDA is the Catholic International Association for Radio and Television, and she was the president for many years, and also a member of the Pontifical Council for Social Communications in the Vatican from 1994 to 2002. So welcome, sister, no stranger to the world of media and very, very gifted in what we are doing. So I hand it all over to you.
Thank you, Father Matthew. It's great seeing all those that are on our panel who will be responding. And thank you very much for the invitation. I haven't had a chance to visit Trinidad since COVID-19, so I feel that something major has been missing in my life in the past year and a half.
We missed you too.
So thank you for inviting me in to share some thoughts with you. This is a very important topic. And I'm titling my talk, Making Social Media Work for Healthy Family Communication. And I'm going to be looking at this whole idea of media education or media literacy from that perspective of social media and looking at some of the current research of what it's indicating about the impact and the importance that social media is having on our family life. And I hope that some of the research that I share with you, and I think some of the practical ideas will open itself for some great conversation as we move along. Those of you who may be familiar with the recent new directory for catechesis that came out of the Vatican in 2020, what's very exciting about the new directory, there is a short section about digital education, digital literacy, and technology and the impact it's having on us. So we're beginning to see that the church is more assertively introducing us into really studying this new milieu. And so the milieu is a wonderful milieu. It's opening up so many opportunities. But we also see there's the dark side of all of this as well. And we need to be aware as teachers, as parents, as young people, all of us need to be aware of the complexity of this new milieu that's evolving very quickly around us. So let me begin to share my PowerPoint with you. And I presume you all can see this now. So you'll see that what we're going to look at is that, and because I really do believe that social media, and you'll see this with some of the research, that a healthy family communication needs to have a sense of how to deal with this social media and how to integrate it into our life, discern with it, and enhance the quality of our family life. You know, we live in a world of the Wi-Fi. I often say, I wish people looked for God as frequently as they look for Wi-Fi. Isn't that true? You go someplace and you have your, we have our iPhones, we have our cell phones, and the first thing we want to know is there Wi-Fi accessible, no matter where you go? And then there's frustration when the Wi-Fi doesn't work. So we're living in this milieu that's so connected with the Wi-Fi that it's opening up us to a global realization that we no longer live just in our community, our towns, our country, but within the world. And we're impacted by issues more dramatically than ever before. We know in almost in an instant what's happening in another part of the world. And we can look at any of this as we look at the fires in the United States, some of the floods that are going on in Europe, what's going on in India, what's going on with COVID all over the world. So we're very much involved in that. That's infecting our media. So we live in this Wi-Fi world, and I want to find ways, how do we always integrate this Wi-Fi experience into our experience of the all holy, the transcendent, and deepening our own understanding and faith. So we look at this as a collaborative conversation. So how do we do see connecting family, school, community, and parish. Wi-Fi enables us to do that. The internet enables us to do this. What are those connections? How significant are each one of them? And what role do each of these entities have for our own understanding of media education or social media literacy? So the Directory for Catechesis states that now we're living in a time of complex changes on many levels with cultural, social, psychological consequences that are not entirely evident to us, because this is evolving so quickly. We're still searching for all the implications. And we should add another word in here, which is not in this particular place in the directory. It's also at that religious level of how is it impacting our understanding regarding our spirituality, our search for God, a deeper meaning of faith communities together. So this complex changes is happening all around us all the time. So everything is shifting. I often would say to my students, when somebody says, I'm just so a little bit disorientated today. And I would say, well, the world is spinning all the time. So if we feel we're disorientated, keep in mind the earth is evolving all the time. So now not only is the earth evolving all the time, but the impact of social media on who we are and how we live and how we respond to one another is changing all the time as well. So we need a kind of social media mindfulness for the 21st century. And this isn't just a sidebar. This isn't like an extracurricular activity. It's an extra course or extra idea that we put when we have time. This has to become very important in our life decision-making. We'll see it's going to impact our values, our orientation in life, and what it means to be a faith community. So it is our responsibility to be mindful of social media because it does promote certain values. It carries values with us. And some of those values support the life of discipleship and others do not. So we'll be talking about how important discernment is when we talk about a media mindfulness or we talk about social media literacy. So the title talks about communication. So the word communication talks about coming together. So communication creates relationships. It creates communio, a sense of community. And the word communication means it's an invitation to participate, to share, or hold something in common. There are different types of communication that we're experiencing in our lives, impacted and advanced because of social media. And we know intrapersonal communication is that which takes place within us. It's through our personal reflection, our meditation. I often say it's the voice in our head. And if you wonder what the voice in your head is, just think for a minute. If you're thinking about something else while I'm talking, it's that voice in the head. But we also have that intrapersonal communication. And then we have interpersonal communication, sharing communication with one another, talking with one another. Then we have group communication where we might have a select group of people who come together. And then we have organization communication, for example, the church, the Archdiocese of Port of Spain, your parish. Then there's media communication or social media, all those other means of Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Snapchat, all of those. And then we have extrapersonal communication, which means when technologies begin to speak with one another. It's like dealing with the internet and those other technologies that work there. So when we talk about a healthy family communication, we're talking about all these different levels of communication that are weaving themselves into the fabric of our life. So we need to broaden our understanding here for the breadth and the depth that the technology brings to us. So then what are the impacts of social media in order for us to understand what the literacy is all about? Well, as humans, we know we are social by nature and crave bonding within relationships. Now, after my 25 or 26 years of going to Trinidad in the Archdiocese of Port of Spain, I know how important lining is with you folks. And I know how important it is hanging out together and how much you love to come together and share a meal together. And all of that is, so there's something about this that as humans, we really want this social, we are social by nature and we crave this bonding. And for this bonding, in order to understand one another, we also need both verbal and nonverbal communication. Those are important to understanding one another. However, sometimes social media also strips us of our ability to hear and see verbal and nonverbal messages. So we probably know that ourselves. All this last year, we were teaching by way of Zoom. All my university classes were by way of Zoom. I could see most of my students, just like you could, some of you see me on this screen, you see me on the screen now. But it would be different if we were in the room together and we were talking and we could read more of our social cues. I would be able to, as I often do, walk up and down the aisles and look at you and have a sense of where you're coming and feel the energy that's in that room. That's very important for communication. That can be lost. So social media, it can strip us of the ability to be able to see verbal and to hear and to see verbal and nonverbal communications. And that can be a very important loss for us as human beings. If we do not practice those skills of the ability to hear and see verbal and nonverbal messages, we miss a lot of what somebody is sharing with us. It's like losing another language that we have. So keep that in mind. So social media use among parents. So now we're talking about parents, and this will be something for us all to look at. So the research today says in the average family, and you could decide whether whatever average means. I'm not sure there's ever a norm either, but in the average, it appears in the research, they're saying when there is a Wi-Fi accessible from the home or within a region, that when it comes to parents, 23% of parents use Twitter, 23%, 25% use their iPhone to take pictures, and 75% of the parents use Facebook. So already what we're seeing is that it's not only how the young people are using these technologies, it's seeing how it's being woven into the fabric of parenting and how parenting is being imaged into the family are the clues and the cues that children themselves are going to pick up of the significance of the social media also. So the studies have shown that as parents increase their screen time, so do children. Screen time in these studies indicate that smartphones, television, computers, and video games have increased significantly among the parents. And what happens is the children mimic the adults. So if it's used significantly by parents, it's also picked up by the small children. Now, this doesn't mean, and we'll talk about this shortly, that teenagers and young adults, they've already developed this pattern within their life. They're the digital natives. they don't even think twice about it. I mean, it's just very natural. When I'm in a class, and a good example of that is when a class finishes, no sooner do they close their naps, their bags, but they already have their cell phone in hand or their iPhone in hand, and they're already talking to somebody else that's not even in the room anymore, someplace else there. And we do have the helicopter parents, you know, that are always calling their kids at UD. I think they talk more with their parents now with their iPhones and WhatsApp, et cetera, than ever before. So, but the more that the young people see the parents use these and participate, the more it is. And it's becoming more prevalent with parents to use it as well. And that's why we need to discern somehow, put some parameters around what role do we want social media to have in our families? That means, to what extent do we want it to impact how we think, how we feel, and how we relate with one another? And that is the beginning. So that's making a value statement, a moral and ethical statement, as well as a religious statement in our lives. This is not an option in our life, especially as we perceive ourselves as being Catholic families living in a growing secular world. It really demands that we pay serious attention to this. So research also indicates that when a parent arrives home from work and their children were immersed in technology or are immersed in technology, the parent is greeted 30% of the time and was ignored 50% of the time. So maybe an example of this is, how often do you walk into a room and you see the members of the family all on some technology, some social media, and you greet them and nobody says anything to you? It's like you're not even there. They've zoned out. They've gone to another place. And that's what's missing from healthy families when that really happens, that you just, there's a word, there's a Greek word for this, and the word is scotoma. I meant to put it in this PowerPoint. Scotoma is a failure to have insight, a failure to see the obvious. And this happens when we become so immersed in the technology that we fail to see the people around us. They're just blanked out. Or if you go to a restaurant, this one drives me crazy. I don't know about you folks, but it drives me crazy. I go to a restaurant and I see a family sitting around the table and everybody is on their iPhone or their tablet. No one is talking to one another. And so already that's where communication is breaking down. I mean, there used to be a time you'd sit around a table and you would have great conversations. Now, I realize that anytime I have been to Trinidad and I sat around with the community or sat around with families, we always had great conversations. But sometimes what happens is that the adults may have their conversations and the kids are off on their tweeting, or they're talking to somebody else in another part of the city or the world. So this idea of becoming aware and alert of our environment, of what's around us, is an important piece of social media. We can become totally isolated into the media or the digital world, in this digital world, without being aware of what's happening in the room that we're in, or what's happening in the lives of the people that we love deeply and who care for us, about others in the faith community and reaching out to them. So this is the whole idea of becoming aware. So maybe what you could do is sort of test yourself during the coming week. When a parent walks into a room, or let's just not even say a parent, let's say another sibling walks into the room and discovers people are on their technology tool, their social media. How many times are they greeted when they come into the room? That would be a very interesting little study to do as we move along here. So researchers are finding that individuals communicate more often with family and friends due to technology also. But the style and the type of communication is potentially weaker, okay? So people are communicating more through technology, but it's it's weaker. We're losing our sense of reading. For example, we're losing our sense of depth reflection, depth conversation, depth critical thinking, and depth communication across the board. Because we're working, we're tweeting in only so many characters. We don't go into more than 164 or more characters when we communicate, or we do it through a photo and we don't say anything more about it. So this idea of, or we'll talk about this shortly, it's what you like or dislike. Where's the critical thinking? You know, you go into Facebook and you see something and you say, well, people say, well, click it. Do you like it or dislike it? Well, that's not critical thinking. That does not help us to nurture our moral values, our ethical values, or ensure our faith development. So this idea of discernment and critical thinking is imperative. So as helpful as the technology is, it's also impacting in this area. So let me just stop there for a moment. And let's just see, does any of this resonate with any of you? Make sense to you, or what would you do with it?
Okay, thank you, sister. Wonderful, wonderful. So any of our panelists, how is this impacting upon you? What do you feel? What do you think? Questions, comments, you know, your own experience. Let's bring this to life in your own experience.
I think for me, if you don't mind me starting, one of the challenges with social media for us is really the amount of information that there is. So apart from what we would do in school or what we would do together as a family, there's a lot of information, and as Sister was saying, we tend to lose some of the context, or we lose a sense of time and space. I always remember that there are friends that I haven't seen in 10 or 15 years, but you feel as though you've seen them because you see them on Facebook. But there's no real connection there because, like I said, we haven't physically been in the same space for a very long time. And you tend to lose that sense of connectedness via the social media landscape. As a family, we have taken the decision a while ago that our kids will not be on social media. So in terms of Twitter, Facebook, and so on, our kids aren't on those platforms as yet. They do spend a lot of time on computers, but it isn't focused on social media. It is more around their education, learning about things, or us exposing them to things that they can learn and share about, and having discussions with their friends, their peers, or other family members. And we thought that, you know, primarily because of the amount of information, as well as the amount of games that there are, because it's very difficult to filter information. And for kids, again, curiosity is a very important part of how we learn. So I think for us, it was important for us to firstly keep that amount of information out of our family space. Help our kids to understand the importance of the information that they are using and how it can help them, firstly with their schoolwork, with their family life and their spiritual life. And then as they get a better sense of how those things are, we can then introduce those other elements as well.
Totally agree.
Thank you. I really appreciate that insight.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I would like to continue. Sister Angela listed several of the impacts so far of social media, of the media on the everyday life. And I realized that I do agree, and I've seen these impacts come to light. And I realize that these impacts have been ever more prevalent nowadays, especially with the pandemic, where we don't have that social interaction, that physical interaction. We are more dependent on the media and the social media apps to communicate with others. And the main impact I've seen reoccurring in everyday conversations is the lack of the verbal and non-verbal cues. So every day I would see important conversations having, and I see sentences as when you read them in a text message, because that's what we love to do. Young people love to do it is they don't phone call, they don't use the voice so you can hear the intonations as much. And simple sentences can be misconstrued due to the lack of intonation and the pauses and the non-verbal or the non-worded intonations of the sentence. So personally I realized that for pertinent conversations, I would rather call. Or so, we have the voice note feature. I tend to try to utilize this as much to reduce any miscommunication as much as possible. And I actually encourage my friends to do that because some situations really require it. And I do believe that I prefer to communicate with my closest friends via phone call because it really helps you. It diminishes that impact of lack of verbal and non-verbal communication that social media puts on us.
No, that's excellent. That's really excellent. And I think it becomes easier for people to often not to have to think about that verbal or nonverbal communication. It's like a hit and miss. We throw something out and run away and have no idea what impact it's having on the other person. And, you know, that's where you end up getting into cyberbullying and you get into a really misunderstanding. It doesn't take much, and perhaps you have all had this experience. It doesn't take much to send a message to someone only to have them radically misinterpreted what you said. They just you didn't mean it to be that way, but the information was so limited without those cues, those verbal or simple cues, that the message was totally lost. And then it takes a long time to heal that. It takes a very long time to heal that issue. So this is where we'll talk about it. We have to be part of, I think, our social media education is we need to not only learn ourselves, but to teach young people, no matter what their age is how to communicate. What is the netiquette? What is the netiquette that is required in order to go into this digital milieu and to communicate with one another? Where is the respect for the human person in all of this? So the idea of incomplete news, fake news, misinterpreted news becomes a downside of the social media because you only want so much information. I mean, I may be I'm a little bit sometimes guilty of this. So in the morning after I pray and I'm getting oriented for the day, I go to about 7 or 8 different media outlets to get the information for the day. That's the advantage for the social media. I can go to, I'm interested what's going on all around the world. So I'm going to all these, but you know, you only get so much information. You really don't get all the information you need to make an informed decision if you are called to action. So when I'm in communication with my dear friend, Cardinal Charles Boo from Myanmar, I see what he writes, but when I read from the other media, there's a lot of information missing. A lot of information is missing and people are making decisions because of the misinformation. So I say to my students, if you're going to read any kind of news, then read from many sources. Just do not take it from one source, because every source has its perspective. It has its prejudice. It has its stereotype. It has its approach that it wants to go there. But by reading a number of them, you can navigate into some truth. But that's the downside. So yes, I think that, thank you for affirming that those verbal and nonverbal cues are very important.
So the Francis family, one of the things they raised was the amount of information. Early on they spoke about the amount of information that's out there and losing the sense of time and space. And they also spoke about not exposing their children at this age to social media. You want to comment on that? What you see in the States around that? Because those are questions that sometimes parents have. And maybe Alicia, I don't know if Alicia wants to share something more about what she has seen in that, and then because families are listening to hear, are these things we should do, shouldn't do? So maybe Alicia could share something, and then comment.
Yeah, and I'm going to address that a little bit in my next set. So
okay.
We're going to come, but please, Lisa, please go and share.
Sure, no problem. No problem, Sister Angela and Father Ragbir. So, I wanted to add a reverse side to what Jeremy added, because one of the disadvantages that I've observed with regards to not utilizing the social media, especially with regards to this pandemic and the children being home and homeschooled, is that in our case where they don't have phones and where they are not in connection via WhatsApp, because our kids don't have phones, they don't utilize the WhatsApp, or etc., they have lost contact with their friends. So there's no way to communicate with their friends outside of a Zoom session in class. And then, of course, the chat is obviously limited in the classroom session. Vacation, nobody really wants to do a Zoom call. You know, the other children might be on some gaming site or whatever, but, you know, our children, they not necessarily, they don't do that, you know. So I know that that's one of the downfalls that possibly Joshua could speak about, right? But just to take up a little bit what Jeremy was saying, we have found it, you know, we know that children like to play games, etc. We said, okay, you like to play games, Minecraft, not a problem, you know, but let's do a little bit more now. How about you learn how to build a game, right? So you're interested in doing stuff like that, you're interested in understanding how things work. So they build stuff on Scratch, they try to learn some coding, you know, but then we have the advantage of it being 3 of them. So, you know, that in itself, they keep each other company where that is concerned, right? They are involved in music. So they, you know, for prayer meeting, they use the opportunity to enhance their musical skills. They play the guitar, the keyboard, they try to jam. You know, gaming is something in terms of, and when I say gaming, I'm talking about the long time version of gaming, Monopoly, Go Fish, right? These things that we don't play anymore. We need to do a lot more of that to come together. And sometimes when it is, you try to suggest that, you know, you want to carve a half day out for that, you're like, oh, you know, I could play on the computer instead. You know, they're so not accustomed to that sort of stuff. But these are things that we could do more with them to bring that FaceTime, because what Sister Angela is really talking about is FaceTime, and not FaceTime the app, right? But face-to-face time within the family, so they can really have meaningful dialogue. Apart from how was your day? Good. How was school today? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. You're going to see in this next part of my presentation, we're going to address the fact that the other piece that's lost, and we presume it, is that young people also want to be hugged. They want to be listened to. They want to have that kind of intimacy with their families, even though they may not immediately talk about it because they're lost in that milieu, but they still need that. And I find that's much of what they're searching for. They're searching for it frequently. If they don't have it at home, they're searching for it online. And when they're searching for it online, it takes them to some dark places and also it's very sporadic, you know, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is great. So if I can go, let me go on. Is that all right?
Sure.
Well, let's just,
I think Joshua wanted to say something.
Oh, yes, Joshua, go ahead.
Okay, Joshua, I just want to ask Leif and Arlene if they wanted to share something first, and then we let Sister Angela present, and then we'll come back to you, okay? Okay.
well, now Joshua first.
So, Leif, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to share as well. We have one daughter, and she doesn't have a cell phone either. However, with the pandemic, we've had to allow the use of the phone or the computer to do her classes and so. Just generally, I think the addictive nature of social media and opening the door for the consumption of so much time on screen. We made a decision a long time ago not to, one, open up internet or devices for our daughter unsupervised, keyword. However, I think the extent of our social media as parents is WhatsApp. I'm not on Facebook. Arlene is, but Arlene only gets on Facebook to play games. We don't do Instagram and so. I think there are right now a lot more dangers, a lot more risk of being consumed with time that's unproductive. And more than that, we value a lot the importance of the human interaction socially, with the verbals, with the non-verbals. I think that there is no substitute for that. I think the same way that you can spend time communicating with friends on Facebook or whatever, just as I think Thane shared earlier, pick up the phone and call. And the beauty now is you have video calls. So you can pick up some of the non-verbals, you know. That's pretty much where we are as parents right now. When is allowed to communicate with our friends on the phone, but in our presence, all right? You know, teenagers, I think my daughter can spend 24 hours on the phone if allowed to. So let me let Arlene share a little bit.
Okay, well, Arlene, before you share, I just want to let Sister continue her presentation and then we'll come back. So we get some more content and then we'll come back with you and I believe Jeremy also after Sister presents. So we get a little more content and so we continue to build what we're discussing and we're able to put out that information. So that's okay, everyone? Yeah? Okay, Sister, you could go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this great conversation. I think it's very, very, very helpful and animates our. So here we are. Here's the mindset. So I want to look at this from another perspective of how it influences our brain. So it's brain and our thinking. So all kind of things are going. I don't really believe we multitask. You know, people say we multitask. We may have many projects on our desk, but it's impossible to think of more than one idea at any given time with any depth. But what happens is that we have so much going on that this distraction, as you'll see, is so great that it's hard to focus in something in depth and to give it our full attention in order to glean from it. So this is the world we live in. So neuroscience is telling us something very important. We're studying more the brain and how the technology is impacting us. There is something definitely that's happening. For example, we're finding that more of the difference, even the right and the left brain theory is now being rethought in our studies of how that works. But some of the left brain is not being utilized as much analytically as it really should be used analytically. And what happens, it just goes to sleep. We don't lose it, but it goes to sleep. So think about when your hand or your foot goes to sleep, you know, you feel that tingling, but you have to massage it. You have to get it going again before you can move. The same thing is happening with our brains if we spend so much time with this. So the digital engagement, as neuroscientists are telling you, is rewiring the brain's neural circuitry. So we don't see that, but it's happening. Our brains are being rewired because of the digital media. It's impacting, you know, culture, it's our psychology, it's impacting our social interaction, and it's impact our sense of religion, of how we experience or understand our relationship with God and that religious imagination that it's called for. So there's a feeling, or it's a theory, that in this whole process that we're losing a sense, not everybody, but some people can lose their sense of imagination because everything is so available all the time that where does the creativity and new ways of thinking come? Now, on the other side, you get so many wonderful ideas from all over the world that you can put together something new, but sometimes they don't have the time to do that because they're busy taking everything in. So we're finding that we're immersed then in this culture of distraction. We are being distracted left and right. We're finding that students in school, they have a very hard time concentrating on any given subject for any length of time. They have a hard time just sitting still. Now, I'm not talking about if we're talking about autism or Asperger's or ADHD. I just mean that our world is becoming very distracted. Well, think about this. I think about this often in my everyday. I've been working at home all year because, like everyone, with Zoom. In one sense, I have more time than I had before, but I think maybe, I don't know if it was you, Joshua, said we spend so much time on Zoom. I mean, I'm being distracted by all these technologies that are, I spend more time meeting now than I think I did before. And also before, when I'd go to meetings, I had to drive to get to the meeting. I spent time in my car. I had to walk to the meeting place. And I had more time to get a break between everything coming at us. But now everything is coming at us all of a sudden. So the studies are also finding that kids who spend more time using technology, are in front of the screen, have more difficulty than peers understanding emotion, developing relationships, and maybe more dependent on others. So the more time they spend there, it is developing, we're having more emotional skill issues and problems than we've had before. Because young people, it's not just young people, I don't even want to put in that category. It's across the whole board because everybody is involved now in the technology. But what we, as families, we want to, as some of you indicated, when families have a better sense of management of social media time and influence, the healthier will children be along the road. And they will be able to develop those skills into their future life of how to manage that. So that is something that we really need to really work on. But we're finding that more young people are saying that they're very lonely, even though we have all this technology around, because it goes back to that personal encounter, that personal interaction, because they want to be, well, we haven't been able to hug anybody because of COVID-19, but they like to be hugged. They like to be embraced. They like to have a hand. They like a pat on the back. They want to see that. They want to feel that energy that comes maybe like in a carnival or at a wonderful high liturgy in the parish, or when a great concert with all the pans. There's something about that energy, and there's something about the faith community coming together at the same time. So an active catalyst in family dynamics is what, with the technology though, the social media, we are finding family members are creating more blogs, and they're creating a network to share family experiences. And families are publishing their lives on social media, more so than they did before. And they're beginning to have meaningful conversations with people of similar interests than they may have had before. So these become some of the positive trends that they give. So my sister, my sibling sister, she's big into genealogy. She's been there for 30 years. And in the past 3 years, she connected with our family in Poland, because all of my extended family is from Poland. And on Saturday, we're having a Zoom meeting with our family in Poland, which we've never seen before, and my siblings. So, that's great because it's connecting us with some people that have been lost. So there's a way that we're moving in this direction. But maybe we have to ask ourselves this question. Do we overshare via social media? Do you think your friends overshare via social media? And has social media turned many parents into oversharers as well as young people? So, what point we think about it? You may be like me. I don't always post a lot on Facebook. I'm lucky if I can answer my email, but I get a lot. I'm on get a lot of Facebook messages, and some of it isn't even worth my reading. I really don't need to know what somebody had for breakfast. I don't really need to see one more picture of a dog. And so, some things are great. When I see pictures of my former students and pictures of their children, but we have to decide, do we overshare so much online in the social media, but not enough interpersonally? And hopefully with you folks are still under COVID, aren't you? Are you still closed down?
Well, Somewhat, yes. We're on a lockdown,
Yeah.
but it's eased, some of the restrictions have eased.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hopefully once we come out of this, people will say they're tired of social media and they want to be with one another. That's what we're hoping. Our students at the university are saying that. They can't wait to come back to campus next month because they're tired of Zoom and they're tired of everything else. So here are some clues for monitoring family social media time, which is part of the media literacy. Be conscious of, do we overshare? Do we spend too much time posting too much? And how do we commit our time? What percentage of our time is used on social media? And also, can we become aware, or do we create fame-hungry kids with the social media? Fame-hungry kids means when they go to social media, how many people linked into their Twitter, how many people saw their Snapchat or their photo, how many people have said they like or don't like them on Facebook. So what's happening is that individuals are posing false selves in the media because they want to be accepted. So they're living two different lives. They're living a digital life, and then they're living their real life. And when their real life doesn't match their digital life, it leads to deep depression. And it's leading to other factors in the personality. When we look at it, do we brag too much online because we want to get that attention from everybody else? Do we sometimes force what we call a picture perfect moment? We have to have the perfect picture to put up. So we take 10 or 15 pictures so we could post it on Facebook, when maybe what we should do is just enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment with your friends. It reminds me, for many years, I've taken my students, UD students, to Italy, and we would see tourists jumping off of a bus, snapping all these pictures of seeing all these special holy places and jumping on the bus and going away. They took the picture, but they never had the experience. And we can do that with our lives as well. And then being aware that we create digital footprints that really can never be wiped away. So I try to raise this consciousness with my students. Careful we've heard this over and over again, careful what you post because it's there forever. And my students in the more recent years are telling me when they go to apply for jobs, their businesses go look at their Facebook, look at what they've Twittered, they follow them to see what kind of person they are based upon their digital image. So we have to be very careful about that. I talked about focusing on likes, and then we shouldn't be competing and comparing one another, and set limits for ourselves and evaluate our own use. So I think that those become some really important. I'm looking at my time here. So we're coming to the end of my PowerPoints. So
we have about 7 more minutes before the program ends.
Oh,
so
okay.
So what do you want to do?
So let me do this.
Sure.
Okay, let me just stop for a minute and let's just take a couple minutes for some comments.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come back with a few closing slides that I really wanted to end with.
Okay, so I want to invite Arlene, and then I want to hear. Could we hear from Joshua? After Arlene. So Arlene, let's keep it tight. We have about 6 minutes now. Let's go.
Right. So I just want to share that, Sister Angela, what you said is basically what we've introduced. Since Gwen was a baby, I asked the family not to post pictures of her on Facebook because the same reason. It's going to be there for forever. And she's our child, but she doesn't have a choice in it. So keep it off of Facebook. Even she shares my phone with me. And I know sometimes she wants to share friends' pictures of things that happen with us. Recently, she turned 16. I allowed her for 2 days to have her picture up of her with her birthday cake on my WhatsApp profile. And then it had to come down. And this is to teach her, you don't know if somebody's going to snap a picture of that and where that picture is going to end up. So I have to teach you, and I'm hoping that it instills in her that you don't post everything out there. Taking pictures, you mentioned about going to Italy with your students. Leif is always telling her, enjoy the moment. Stop trying to take pictures of it. You're with the friends, you're with the family.
Yeah.
You don't have to take every picture. What you have to take is a shot in your mind of the memory of the moment and who was there. And so you can share that later. You don't have to have a picture of everything else. So it's refreshing to hear that what we're doing is sort of on the lines of what you're supposed to be doing, because we get a lot of flack from people that our child doesn't have a phone, that she doesn't have a social media profile. Like, she's a deprived child that's never going to have anything. She's 16. She has an entire lifetime to go and make those mistakes. And what we're trying to do is instill the correct thing. So when she goes out there, she can say, no, I don't want to put that picture up, or I don't need to share that. So it's nice to hear that we're doing something correct, because we keep getting that you all are being overprotective and controlling.
No, I think that's really great. And thank you. That's a great affirmation. We don't have to keep, we don't have to be imitating everybody else and copying everybody else. Just because it's a trend, it doesn't mean we have to do it. Who creates the trend anyway? We can create an alternative trend. So let me end with 2 slides here as an example of what I want to share is, I think a trend in social media that's part of what we're all about is creating digital missionary disciples in cyberspace. I go into grade schools and I talk about becoming digital missionary disciples. How we experience and interact with the social media and that media literacy, we can influence it just as much as it's influencing us. And that's what we really need to do. And I think many of your examples is really on target. So remember, we are not just imitators or copiers. We are original ourselves. Each one of us is unique. And God has given each one of us unique gifts to cultivate and to nurture and to bring those into the digital milieu. So how do we become digital missionary disciples? And finally, I would want to say that with this last slide could summarize it. Key steps then, I think, to cultivate in a digital milieu is we have to learn how to observe what's going on around us in the real world. So we develop that art of seeing. We develop the art of listening deeply, not at the superficial level, but deeply, to get deep into the meaning, learning how to dialogue with one another, not just a monologue of going back and forth, but dialoguing about an issue so that we can discern what is the right response we have and how we can contribute to it. And I think that leads to action. That's what I think impacts one's quality of life and also our faith life. So we bring all of those ideas together, and there's so much more we could say about this, but I think we've touched on a few key points that are, I think, affirmations for some of you, for you folks, but also a challenge for anyone else who's listening to this program of what to think about. But hopefully there's something here to carry on.
Thank you, sister. And I still want to hear from Joshua. Let's hear from Joshua. You want to share with us something that really touched you in all that we've shared, or something in your own heart? Tell us. We have about a minute. Go ahead.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
Face-to-face time can never be replaced by texting or Zoom or any of those websites, because you're talking to somebody on WhatsApp. Of course, you type really fast, so you send something in 2 seconds. You read it in 3 seconds, and you type really fast as well, and it just keeps going on and on. None of you are really taking in what the other person is saying. While we're actually talking, you have to take in every single word. Because texting, honestly, is just words on a screen. It's not really, and people want to type really fast, so they leave out a lot of vital information. I just want to say that texting will never replace talking in real life. I know social media is really important, but we have to try not to let it become the main thing in our lives.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And even now, some people would even, I could have just said WBU, what about you, and we've even lost the sense of words, it's a whole new language out there. And, but what Sister's inviting us to is reclaim what's really beautiful about human beings, our dignity, our presence to each other, the gift of being present to each other, and the call of God to be wherever we are, to be his hands and his feet. So even if we're out there in the media, that we be his hands and his feet, the content we put out, and yes, we have to be reflective, presence, lots of great things. Thank you very much, sister. And thank you very much to the Francis Johnson and families and Thane. And God bless you all. And so we continue with our Marriage and Family Week. And tomorrow, children are a gift. That's what we're reflecting on. And so I'm now going to do the outro. And wherever you are, may God bless you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks, Father.
We are a family, a big family, a loving family in this Christian community.